In 1943, high above the broken farmlands of northern France, a German fighter ace made a decision in a matter of seconds. One that would change a life forever. He had no idea that this single moment in the cold, thin air would return to him 18 years later. Not as an enemy, but as a friend. By mid-1943, the Second World War had entered a brutal, unforgiving stage. The skies over Europe were no longer simply battlegrounds. They were arenas where exhaustion, duty, and human instinct collided every hour. The Royal Air Force was pushing deeper into occupied territory, escorting bombers and challenging German dominance. The Luftwaffe, stretched thin and fighting on multiple fronts, was ordered to stop them at any cost. Every mission carried danger. Every cloud could hide death. Every approaching silhouette might be the last thing a pilot ever saw. And on one overcast morning, two men, one German, one British, would meet in this lethal, trembling sky. Neither knew the other's name. Neither expected to live long enough for it to matter. But fate had already begun to weave them together. The German ace, Oberleutnant Franz Stigler. Franz Stigler was born in Bavaria, the son of a base engineer. He grew up surrounded by aircraft, machines of precision, discipline, and power. His childhood was marked not by violence, but by an unshakable respect for flight. He learned early that flying demanded skill, but surviving demanded restraint. Before the war, Franz flew commercially. He taught young pilots how to handle their machines, how to land with grace, and, quietly, sternly, how to respect the lives of others in the air. When the war came, he joined the Luftwaffe. Not out of ideology, but out of a pilot's instinct. To protect his homeland, and to protect the men flying beside him. He survived North Africa. He survived Sicily. He survived missions that claimed the lives of pilots, just as skilled as himself. By 1943, he was an established ace. Respected, disciplined, and precise. But under that steel exterior remained something war had not yet extinguished. Compassion. The British pilot, Flight Lieutenant Alastair "Jock" Patterson. Hundreds of miles away, across the Channel, Alastair Patterson had lived a childhood defined by resilience. Born in Scotland, he grew up with a quiet stubbornness that would become the defining engine of his life. In his early teens, a railway accident changed everything. Alastair lost both of his legs. Doctors told him his future would be limited. The RAF, they said, would be impossible. But Alastair refused to listen. He trained relentlessly. He learned to walk on prosthetics until the pain faded into something he could ignore. He learned to run, then to climb, then to fly. By 1943, he had become one of the RAF's most determined pilots. Not because he was fearless, but because he understood how precious survival truly was. His squadron knew him not by his injuries, but by his resolve. He had already survived missions that took aircraft apart in seconds. He had already flown home with machines bleeding oil and fire. And on the day that would define his life, he flew with the mindset he always carried. That machine has my life. I will give it everything I have in return. June 29, 1943. A thin layer of cloud stretched across northern France, as Alastair Patterson and his wingmen lifted off for a routine escort mission. Their job was simple on paper: protect a returning bomber group. But simplicity in war was often an illusion. Within minutes of crossing the coast, German radar detected them. A flight of Messerschmitt Bf 109s was dispatched to intercept. Among them was Franz Stigler. At first, the sky appeared empty. Then, two specks. Two fighters, alone and far ahead of their group. Franz pushed forward. Instinct said this would be quick. But as he closed the distance, something felt wrong. The lead British fighter was flying unevenly. Not evasive, not aggressive, but struggling. Then he saw it. The aircraft recoiled mid-air as its engine sputtered. Oil streamed across the canopy like black rain. The wingman tried to cover him, but a burst of German fire clipped his aircraft. He broke away, limping toward the channel. And now, only one British fighter remained. Alastair Patterson. Alone. Damaged. Vulnerable. Training demanded one thing: eliminate the threat. But humanity whispered another. Franz throttled forward and slid behind the British fighter, lining up the shot. Everything in his training, every order from command, told him to fire. But then he saw something no textbook could prepare him for. Through the fractured canopy, in the dim interior of the cockpit, Franz glimpsed the pilot. He wasn't holding the controls normally. His legs, they weren't moving. For a moment, Franz thought he was injured. Then he realized the truth. The man flying the aircraft had no legs. Alastair Patterson was desperately trying to stabilize his damaged fighter, using only his hands, his arms, and sheer will. Franz felt the breath leave his body. This wasn't combat. This wasn't an enemy. This was survival. A pilot fighting not to win, but simply to live. If Franz fired, no one would question him. But he would never forget it. Slowly, deliberately, he lifted his finger from the trigger and eased his aircraft alongside the British fighter. For a long, fragile moment, the two men, enemies by the map, brothers by the sky, looked at one another. Franz pointed toward the channel, urging him home. Alastair, trembling, nodded. Side by side, they flew until the coast of France fell behind them, and the open water stretched below. Only then did Franz raise his hand in a silent farewell and peel away into the clouds. Back at his base, Franz said nothing. To spare an enemy was to risk execution under the code of the Luftwaffe. Compassion was not a luxury the war allowed. But the image stayed with him. A pilot with no legs, clinging to life in a machine barely holding together. Alastair survived the landing. His squadron officers questioned him for hours, stunned by the story he told. A German fighter escorted me home. He could have killed me. He didn't. The war moved on. Missions continued. Men disappeared. The world changed one explosion at a time. But for both men, the memory endured. Quiet, persistent, unresolved. 18 years passed. By the early 1960s, Alastair Patterson had settled into civilian life. He told the story of the German ace who spared him. But no one knew the man's name. Then, one morning, a letter arrived. A veterans organization in Germany had been collecting accounts of unusual wartime encounters. Someone had read Alastair's story and recognized it. A German pilot, now retired, had spoken of sparing a British fighter pilot with no legs. His name, Franz Stigler. Within months, the two men met face to face. No longer enemies. No longer soldiers. Just two men shaped by a moment in the sky that neither had forgotten. They shook hands, then embraced. And as they talked, quietly, slowly, gratefully, a friendship formed that would last the rest of their lives. The Second World War was filled with destruction, hatred, and unimaginable loss. But stories like this remind us that, even in humanity's darkest moments, a single act of compassion can echo across decades, transforming enemies into friends, and turning a moment of mercy into a legacy of hope. If you want more forgotten stories from history's darkest and brightest hours, don't forget to subscribe and join us for the next journey into the past.